In a quiet corner of the world, in a little town called Bethlehem, a story began. It wasn't in a grand palace with trumpets and fanfare. No, this story started in a humble stable, surrounded by the soft sounds of animals. Here, a baby was born to a young woman named Mary and her husband Joseph. They named him Jesus. This was no ordinary child. Angels had announced his coming. Shepherds, guided by a brilliant star, came from their fields to see him. They looked upon the small face of the baby, wrapped snugly and lying in a manger, and they knew something wonderful had happened. God had sent a part of himself to live among us, to walk where we walk and feel what we feel. Jesus grew up not in a place of power, but in the town of Nazareth. He learned his father's trade, worked with wood, and lived an ordinary life, with something extraordinary within him. When the time was right, Jesus left his home and traveled to the Jordan River. It was here that his public journey truly began. He met John the Baptist, his cousin, preaching repentance. Jesus asked John to baptize him. He came up out of the water. A powerful moment. The heavens seemed to open up. The Spirit descended like a dove, resting on him.
A voice from heaven spoke. "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased."
The quiet carpenter from Nazareth was revealed as God's chosen one. Jesus knew he would not walk this path alone. He began to look for friends. He began to look for helpers. He began to look for those who would share in his mission. He walked along the shores of the Sea of Galilee. He saw fishermen casting their nets. He saw Simon, Peter. He saw Andrew.
He said, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men."
Something in his voice and eyes stirred their hearts. They left their nets, they left their boats, they left everything they knew, and they followed him. He called more, until there were 12. They were not scholars, they were not priests. They were ordinary people called to extraordinary purpose. As Jesus traveled through the towns and villages with his disciples, he began to show the world the power and compassion of God. He didn't just talk about love, he demonstrated it in amazing ways. He saw people who were sick, and he healed them. He touched the eyes of the blind. They could see. He reached out to those suffering from diseases that made them outcasts, and he made them whole again. Each healing was more than just a physical act. It was a sign of restoration. One day, a huge crowd of thousands had followed him to a remote place to hear him teach. As evening approached, they were hungry with nothing to eat. He took 5 loaves and 2 fish, blessed them, and began to break them. There was enough food to feed everyone, with baskets of leftovers besides. On another occasion, he and his disciples were in a boat when a terrifying storm erupted. Jesus stood up and commanded the wind and the waves to be still. The storm instantly ceased. These acts were windows into the heart of God, signs of restoration and wholeness. Feeding the 5,000 showed that God is a provider who can take our little and make it more than enough. Calming the storm showed that even in our most frightening moments, Jesus brings peace. But more important than any miracle was the message he taught. The core of his teaching was simple and profound. Love. He told parables to help people understand God's forgiveness. He taught that we should forgive others, just as God forgives us. His message was for the poor, the broken, and the forgotten, that they are cherished and valued by God. The journey of Jesus, filled with so much love and healing, led to the city of Jerusalem. He knew what awaited him there. He knew that his mission required one final, ultimate act of love. His message had made some powerful leaders angry, and they plotted against him. He was betrayed by one of his own friends and arrested. He was put on trial, accused of things he did not do. Though he was innocent, he was sentenced to die the most painful death imaginable, death on a cross. He was nailed to the cross between 2 criminals. Even in his final moments, his heart was full of forgiveness. He looked out at the people who had mocked him and the soldiers who had crucified him.
"Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing."
When he finally breathed his last, the sky grew dark and the earth shook. It seemed like the end. It seemed like darkness had won. They took his body down and laid it in a borrowed tomb, sealing it with a great stone. But that was not the end of the story. 3 days later, some of the women who followed Jesus went to the tomb, their hearts heavy with grief. But when they arrived, they found the massive stone rolled away. The tomb was empty. An angel told them the most wonderful news: he is not here, he has risen. Jesus was alive. He had conquered death itself. His journey from a humble stable to an empty tomb is an invitation to experience love, forgiveness, and hope today.